Hey everyone, okay, we're back with Management 605 and we're talking about challenging processes within organizations, and in particular how an organization that we do or have worked for has proceeded with such a tasking. Challenging organizational culture or organizational processes, things that have been in place for a while, can sometimes be daunting. There's no shortage of people who will tell you that, hey, just because you have a great idea doesn't mean it's going to fly by so easily. So there are four questions that we kind of want to focus on tonight: evaluating organizations and how they take risks, and how we deal with change and communication, how we communicate that change, and then are there any recommendations of how the process should improve, or how the process just in general should change within the organization in regards to change. So it's a lot of change talking about tonight. Unfortunately, I don't have any change to offer you. But beyond that, let's kind of just sit back, relax, and see what we can find out tonight. So there's a lot to be said for change within an organization. It's been said that a great leader will reevaluate at least once a year on any number of topics that relate to the organization or their leadership style or their direction and their vision and their focus. A lot of leaders will take that opportunity, kind of like we do the New Year's resolutions, if you will, to kind of reinvent what's going on and kind of try and figure out what's worked in the past year, what hasn't worked, what could we do better, what did we not do so well, and can we implement something that will make the process easier, will condense it, or will just make it more effective. When you talk about process change, you get into a whole lot of areas that people don't want to necessarily deal with, and I would say the number one in those is communication. Leaders tend to be absolutely great visionaries, but sometimes they struggle with how to communicate that things are going to change within their organization. And that communication really does start at the top. We could say that, well, middle management should kind of figure out how to communicate to everybody. But the truth is, if you want somebody to share your vision, if you want somebody to be inspired by what it is you're trying to get them to do, and you want them to see things on a whole new level, you have to iterate that to them yourself. So there's got to be a way in which we as leaders communicate to every level of the organization. From the person right below us all the way down to the most junior individual on the team. There can be no aspect of the team that we are not 100% engaged with as far as human behavior and human capital and human resources are concerned, because as has been said before, without the members of the team, there is no organization. Without people, we don't have products. We have tons of machines that make a lot of things, but somebody programs the machine to do what it does. Somebody builds the machine that then builds other things. So no matter what the organization is or how you look at it, there's always going to be a human element to it. And as leaders, we need to focus on that element and be ready to engage it and communicate effectively with it, especially if we're talking about doing something a new way or kind of reinventing the wheel, if you will, for lack of a better term. So then we're left with, well, what might need to change? Okay, so I'll give you a prime example. I work in an organization where right now, currently, we do a lot of projects that are classified in nature, that kind of deal with where the Navy needs to go in the future. What resources do we need to acquire? What systems do we need to buy? What weapons do we need to invest in so that if we have a future fight that we have to engage in, we'll be able to come out on top. We'll be able to be the dominant participant in that particular engagement. So a lot of what we do and talk about is classified, but the problem with that comes in that there's a lot of times when what we're talking about may impact another service or impact another branch or impact an allied nation. So we have to take into consideration, okay, so what we're doing as a whole may be considered a classified entity, but are there parts of it that we can pull out that would not, if known, cause a threat to the national security or to the national interest that we can share with with the people who we work with and alongside who may need some of that subject matter expertise or may need that thinking and that thought process to kind of apply in their world. And so we're constantly, constantly questioning, do we need to change the process of how we do this? Is the process by which we're doing this now effective? And we've discovered that there is some effectiveness to it. There's also some ineffectiveness to it, in that the cross communication between services and branches and agencies, as the pundits like to say, is broken. And it is to an extent. I won't say it's completely foregone beyond all recapturing, but it is definitely not what it once was. So we've got to kind of challenge that process and say, okay, where can we change things in the way we do business to ensure that we're doing it as good stewards of not only the taxpayers' dollars, but in the best interests of the nation and of our allies and of our fellow services. And so that's just kind of one example of how we're changing processes within the organization that I currently work for, to kind of give you an idea of what would those changes look like? What do changes in process necessarily mean? Now, with that comes a lot of risk, because we risk somebody taking the product that we've developed, or the concept or the idea that we've developed, and saying, hey, well, we're going to use that, and so we'll go ahead and invest in it. And then we go before Congress and say, hey, we want to invest in this. They're like, and those guys already did, to the tune of however many $billion. Go ask them if you can borrow their stuff. And that one just doesn't really kind of float real well, especially when you're dealing with congressional oversight. When somebody's bought it, that's it. The well's dried up. So there's an inherent risk in sharing information. You also run the risk that it could perhaps be leaked to a third party that doesn't need it. And when you get into that, you get into a whole nother level of issues that would and could resonate beyond just the organization itself and into a spotlight that you don't necessarily want it in. So you got to mitigate that risk. You got to be willing to take that risk, though, still, and understand that there are going to be times when things happen and there's nothing you can do about it. But if you are completely risk averse, then the opposite will be true, and there'll be no change, nothing happens, and nothing good comes of what you're doing, because you're stuck in your ways and you're kind of just set on, this is the way it's always been, this is the way it's going to be. And while it may function for a time, as we know, just with the evolutionary process of business, things need to evolve. They need to rapidly change, especially in an ever-growing and globally interdependent economic market like we have, and a society like we live in now. Things will always be changing, and we have to be ready and willing as leaders to accept that those things are changing and to make them change for the better. So all of this I would wrap up in then saying, how do we do this without offending people or destroying the community? And again, I go back to communication. The number one way you're going to do it is to communicate at every possible level within the organization. Don't let your vision be something that you share with a small group of people and then hope that it explodes somewhere. No. I mean, if you're looking for your closet vision to become this next big thing, this thing that ignites everybody, but you have no intention of being a part of how it ignites people or how they even find out about it, then, as they say up in the north, forget about it. It's not going to happen. I mean, it's just not. We have to be willing to engage at every level of the organization with every team member to say, hey, this is what the vision is. This is how we feel as a leadership team, or how I feel as your leader. We need to move forward. Can I get your support? Can I get your backing? Do you have any ideas? Is there something that maybe you think we could be doing differently or doing better, or something that we are doing that we shouldn't be doing? Get that feedback. Let the people that you're talking to know that you are genuinely interested and you genuinely care and you want them to share in this and not just be your stepping stool to the next level in leadership or in the next rung of the ladder of success. So again, that's the way you're going to negotiate things without offending people and without destroying community. You're going to make sure that everybody has an equal ear and an equal voice when it comes to your interaction with them. There's not going to be anybody who feels like they're not heard. You may weigh and value opinions differently, and that's okay. That's something that you as a leader have to decide. and that's something that you I recommend keep to yourself. I wouldn't tell anybody beyond maybe your closest confidant whose opinions you value and whose you don't, whose you think might be on the ball and whose you don't. Let that be something that you deal with on your own. That way you're not tainting anyone else's opinion of anyone, and you're not running the risk that someone will find out a negative aspect that they may feel you have towards them. And that would be your best way to mitigate any potential for the kind of cross-cultural offending, if you will. And when I say cross-cultural, it could be, socioeconomic, ethnic, gender. It could be any of the ways. It could just be your position in the organization. You don't want to let that be something that drives how somebody thinks you think about them, or perceives that you think about them. So again, keep it honest, keep it authentic, keep it simple, and make sure that you're communicating. That's going to be the way you're going to change things for the best. That's the way you're going to get the most ideas from other people. That's the way you're going to share your vision the most. You're going to take the right amount of risk while not being too risk avert, but while mitigating the risk of offending anybody or causing a division within the community of your organization. So these are my thoughts for you. I hope you've enjoyed them. Leave me some comments below. Tell me what you think. And until next time, again, lead from your heart. And just remember that we are all servant leaders called to some pretty great taskings and some pretty awesome responsibilities. And we should take those very seriously. And I think we do. So until next time, guys, have a great night. And I will see you on the flip side.